South China Sea tensions have pushed the US and China into a dangerously hostile dispute, with some experts warning the risk of conflict is real. This wasn't helped by Beijing's deployment of ship-killer missiles. China's military had already threatened to sink 2 aircraft carriers of the US when it activated the ballistic missiles. Rear Admiral Lou Yuan warned beforehand that China's new and highly capable DF-26 anti-ship ballistic and cruise missiles were more than capable of hitting US carriers, despite them being at the center of a bubble of defensive escorts. He said what the United States fears the most is taking casualties. He said the loss of 1 super carrier would cost the US the lives of 5,000 servicemen and women. Sinking 2 would double that toll. He will see how frightened America is. He added that China should use its strength to attack the enemy's shortcomings. Attack wherever the enemy is afraid of being hit. Wherever the enemy is weak. This warning came in December 2018. The Chinese state-controlled newspaper The Global Times said the country's newest warheads were being deployed a month later into positions best suited at striking vessels in the East and South China Sea. The announcement of the deployment came just days after a U.S. warship passed through the Taiwan Strait and close to the Paracel Islands, Chisha Islands claimed by China, Vietnam and Taiwan to assert the international rules of the sea which govern rights of free passage. Taiwan has been at the center of political disputes between China and the U.S., as Beijing aims to assert control over the Asian territory. The Global Times said in January 2019 the timing of the report sparked discussions among Chinese military observers online, as it came after the USS McCampbell, a US-guided missile destroyer, trespassed into China's territorial waters off the Chisha Islands on Monday without permission from the Chinese government. Chinese government mouthpiece continued the DF-26 as China's new generation of intermediate-range ballistic missile capable of targeting medium and large ships at sea. It can carry both conventional and nuclear warheads. The missiles are ballistic, meaning they boost their warheads high into the edge of space. These warheads then plunge at very high speeds back down towards their targets. As the US and China have grappled for control in recent years, analysts have warned on a number of occasions that there is serious risk of an accidental conflict. Hu Bo, director of the Center for Maritime Strategy Studies at Peking University, said that the deployment of US vessels was aimed at stopping China from taking advantage of a power vacuum. Speaking in 2017, he also warned there was a risk that such incidents could result in a miscalculation and escalate into military conflict. He added this kind of provocative behavior was totally driven by political needs aimed at showing force and demonstrating strength, but that can become an accident. He also said that there could be parties with the US military aiming to create a small-scale and controllable conflict with their Chinese counterparts. Hu Bo concluded, however, how can you predict and control the consequences of a war? Meanwhile, Forbes reported on Sunday that the US military probably has enough fighter jets to win a war against China in the Western Pacific region, but it doesn't have enough bases there. The report suggested that the US Army could borrow bases from China by dropping paratroopers or landing Marines on some of China's islands and reefs. However, the US military's desire to achieve such a combat goal with the Marine Corps alone is tantamount to a daydream. If the US Navy and Air Force do not offer help to secure control of the air or not enough US troops are deployed in the operation, Marines alone, even if landing is the strength of this service, will never make it. Marines alone might succeed with a small and militarily weak country as target. But China is not one. Military operation of this kind will not be carried out before the Pentagon, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, and the U.S. Marine Corps Forces Command all give green lights. But high-level military officials will make the call from the level of national interests, and take into consideration the situation of other countries in order to maximize their strategic interests. Hence, they are not likely to meet the needs of only one service branch. Chinese State Councilor and Minister of National Defense Wei Feng on Thursday took a phone call from U.S. Secretary of Defense Mark Esper upon invitation. The two sides exchanged views on bilateral ties and military relations, as well as the next phase of bilateral military exchanges. Well aware of the standing tensions, Esper said the two militaries should maintain dialogue and consultation to manage crises, avoid misjudgment and reduce risks. The context of this consensus between Beijing and Washington, the assumption that U.S. troops could capture China's islands and reefs in the South China Sea is no more than media speculation. It is based on the premise that there will be large-scale military conflicts between the two major powers. But judging from the current combat readiness of the U.S. military, the reports on this topic are more of an attempt to heat up the situation. It reflects that certain U.S. military branches, such as the Marine Corps and even the U.S. Army, want to take the advantage to demonstrate their importance to America's South China Sea strategies. They are struggling for a more important role in future U.S. military deployment and trying to get a bigger military budget from Congress. Current Commandant of the Marine Corps David H. Berger assumed the duties on July 11, 2019. One might surmise that he focuses mainly on how to make full use of his service instead of develop an overall strategy. U.S. military news website military.com cited retired Marine Colonel Mark Cancian as saying that the Marine Corps right now is like a Swiss Army knife whose owner has ripped out a couple of blades because he doesn't think he's going to need them anymore. Based on the two above-mentioned reports, it is obvious that the Marine Corps hopes to gain more importance in the eyes of the Pentagon. China's construction on its own islands and reefs in the South China Sea is mainly for civil purposes. Necessary defense facilities are also deployed on them too. This is an exercise of self-preservation and defense, a right granted by international law to sovereign states. It has nothing to do with the so-called militarization of the South China Sea issue whatsoever. The U.S. sees the region as a leverage to contain China. It has constantly hyped and exaggerated the so-called military purpose of these islands and reefs only in order to push for greater flexibility to conduct military operations in the area. But if the U.S. military really reaches out to capture China's islands and reefs, it will declare the start of a total war with China. By then, the U.S. troops will have to face an all-out counterattack from the People's Liberation Army or PLA and will certainly pay a heavy price for their reckless decisions. After all, the PLA faces no rivals within the first island chain. In any case, regardless of whether the media is hyping the China-US military conflict in the South China Sea, the PLA will be well prepared for a potential war. It will conduct an objective and calm analysis of the situation, rather than be misled by media fantasies.